Started with the ring. A small, stupid detail, really. Jessica's wedding band. The one she used to twist around her finger absent-mindedly whenever she was thinking, had disappeared. Not lost, just absent. One night, as we were watching TV, I noticed her bare hand. She'd always been proud of the ring. Platinum, understated, but with a diamond that caught the light just right. It wasn't on the coffee table, the counter, or the bedside drawer where she usually kept it if she'd taken it off to clean or shower. "Where's your ring?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. Her head didn't even turn. She was staring at her phone. Again, I groaned to hate that thing. "Oh, it's at the jeweler's," she said, too quickly. "Needed a resize." "A resize?" I frowned. "After 7 years?" She shrugged, finally looking up with a flicker of irritation in her eyes. "Yeah, fingers change, don't they?" I didn't push further, though the explanation made no sense. If her fingers had changed, it wasn't from weight gain or loss. She was the same Jessica, maybe even fitter, more polished. Lately, she'd been working out more, spending extra time in front of the mirror, trying new looks. I'd assumed it was for herself, maybe to shake off the monotony of routine. But now, that little missing ring planted a seed of doubt in my mind. 2 weeks later, I got my first real clue. Jessica told me she'd be out late with her new networking group. I'm not the jealous type. I've never cared if she wanted to meet friends or attend events alone. But this time, something felt off. I decided to test her. "Oh, cool. Which group is it?" I asked as casually as I could. Her answer came too fast. "Just some people from work. You wouldn't know them." I wasn't expecting names, but the dismissiveness rubbed me the wrong way. Jessica was always eager to share details about her life, almost to a fault. But now, her tone was clipped, her words calculated. The following Saturday, I decided to drop by her networking group unannounced. It took some careful planning, checking her planner, tracking her new favorite restaurant locations, but I had a good guess where they might be. The moment I walked into the bar, I spotted her. Not with a group, not even with a colleague. Jessica was leaning against a man I'd never seen before, her hand on his arm, her laughter too loud, too familiar. First, I froze. I didn't want to believe it. I thought, this can't be happening. But then she touched his face, her fingers brushing his cheek like it was second nature, and something inside me snapped. I didn't make a scene. Not then. Instead, I stayed in the shadows, watched the way they spoke, how close they stood, how her lips lingered near his ear. She wasn't just cheating. She was comfortable. When she kissed him, I left. I didn't know what to do with myself, so I drove around for hours, replaying the moment over and over. My hands gripped the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. By the time I got home, Jessica was already in bed. Her phone sat on the counter, glowing faintly with notifications. For the first time in our relationship, I picked it up. My hands shook as I scrolled through the messages. And there it was. His name, Mark. Stupid, flirty texts that left no room for doubt. Plans, inside jokes, things she hadn't shared with me in years. But the one that broke me was simple. "Can't wait to see you again tonight. You're worth the risk." She knew I saw everything and left the party. She thought I was upset, but I was planning revenge. The next morning, I woke up before Jessica. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee I wasn't drinking, staring out the window at nothing in particular. My mind was racing, spinning through every possible way I could confront her, every word I wanted to throw in her face. But no, that was too easy, too satisfying for her. She didn't deserve easy. Jessica walked in a little after 9, hair still messy, wearing my sweatshirt over her leggings like everything was normal. I felt my jaw tighten. I wanted to scream at her, demand answers, but I forced myself to play it cool. "Not yet." "Morning," she said, her voice light, breezy. She grabbed her favorite mug and started pouring herself coffee, humming some stupid tune. I couldn't help myself. "How was your networking event last night?" Her hand froze for a split second. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but I caught it. She recovered quickly, turning to face me with a smile so fake I wanted to wipe it off her face. "Good. Long. A lot of small talk, you know how it is." "Oh yeah." I leaned back, swirling my coffee like I didn't have a care in the world. "Funny. I was in the area last night. Thought I might stop by, but I couldn't find you. Her smile faltered. It was so slight, but I saw it. Oh, it must have been later. We left pretty early and went to a quieter place to talk. The lies were coming effortlessly now, flowing from her like a second language. It was sickening, right? I nodded slowly, holding her gaze. She looked away first, pretending to sip her coffee. That's when I noticed it. On the chair by the door, her red dress from last night. It was wrinkled, like she hadn't bothered to hang it up properly. And on the collar, just faintly, was a smudge of something dark. Lipstick? No, Jessica never wore anything but nude shades. It wasn't hers. I got up, walked past her, and picked up the dress. She stiffened behind me. "You're getting sloppy, Jess," I said, my voice low. Her head snapped toward me, confusion flashing in her eyes before being replaced by a practiced calm. "What's that supposed to mean?" I held the dress up, pointing at the stain. "This, not yours, is it?" For a split second, she looked panicked, but then she laughed. A sharp, hollow sound that made my blood boil. "Are you seriously accusing me of something because of a smudge? It's wine. From dinner. Don't be ridiculous." She walked over, snatching the dress from my hands. The audacity in her voice was astounding. I had to clench my fists to stop myself from throwing her lies right back at her. "Sure," I said, letting her believe she'd won. "Wine. Makes sense." But her reaction told me everything I needed to know. She was lying, and she knew I knew. Later that afternoon, I decided it was time to take things further. I grabbed her laptop while she was in the shower. Her phone had been locked last night, but I knew she wasn't careful with everything. Her email was logged in. There it was, like a gift from the universe. An entire thread with Mark. Flirting, details of their dates, plans for the next one. He wasn't just some fling. He was a fixture. Jessica came out of the bathroom as I closed the laptop. She was wrapped in a towel, her hair dripping water onto the hardwood floor. She froze when she saw me sitting on the bed, her laptop next to me. I didn't smile. I didn't say anything. I just stared at her, long and hard. Her eyes darted to the laptop. She swallowed. "What?" she said, feigning innocence. I stood up slowly, brushing past her, and whispered just loud enough for her to hear. "You'll see soon enough." She called my name as I walked out, but I didn't stop. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of scrambling to cover her tracks. The game had started, and she didn't even know it yet. Jessica spent the rest of the day shadowing me like a hawk. Her usual carefree demeanor was gone, replaced with tension so thick you could choke on it. Every question she asked, "What are you up to? Why are you so quiet today?" reeked of desperation. She knew something was wrong, but she didn't know what I knew, and that gave me the upper hand. Around 8 p.m., she announced she was heading to the grocery store. I gave her a curt nod, pretending to focus on a football game that I wasn't actually watching. As soon as I heard her car pull out of the driveway, I sprang into action. Her laptop wasn't enough. I needed something concrete, undeniable, to destroy every excuse she could throw at me. I went to her dresser, the one she kept meticulously organized, and started rifling through her things. Jessica had always been particular about her space, but now I saw it for what it was, the hiding spot for her lies. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. Tucked inside an old shoebox at the back of the drawer, under a pile of scarves she hadn't worn in years, was her second phone. My heart pounded as I held it in my hands, wondering how I'd missed this all along. I turned it on. No password. Amateur move, Jess. Messages, photos, locations. It was all there. Mark's name was pinned at the top of her chat list, their messages reading like some twisted love story. They called each other pet names. They talked about trips they were planning, places they wanted to go together, places Jessica had never even mentioned to me. And the photos? Smiling selfies of the two of them at the bar, at the gym, in his car. One of them stood out. Her wearing that damn red dress, Mark's arm draped possessively around her waist. I wanted to throw the phone across the room, to break something, to scream. Instead, I took screenshots of everything and sent them to myself. Evidence. This wasn't just about confronting her anymore. It was about taking back control of my life, about making sure she couldn't wriggle out of the mess she'd made. Jessica came home about half an hour later, carrying bags of groceries like nothing had happened. She even hummed as she walked through the door, her fake confidence creeping back in. I was calm when she walked into the kitchen, placing a carton of eggs on the counter. "How was the store?" I asked, my tone neutral. She glanced at me, probably trying to gauge my mood. "Fine. They were out of the almond milk I like, though." I nodded, tapping my fingers on the counter. "You left your laptop open earlier." Her hands froze mid-motion, a can of soup in one hand and a loaf of bread in the other. She recovered quickly, setting the items down and laughing nervously. "Oh? Was I working on something?" I didn't respond. I just held her second phone up, letting it dangle from my fingers. The color drained from her face. "Where did you find that?" she asked, her voice sharp, no longer pretending. "Where do you think?" I said, leaning against the counter. "Better question. How long were you planning to keep this hidden? Or did you think I was too stupid to notice?" Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. It's not what it looks like." "Oh, it's exactly what it looks like." My voice rose, the anger I'd been bottling up all day finally bubbling over. I slammed the phone on the counter. "You've been sneaking around with Mark, lying to my face, and you didn't even have the decency to cover your tracks properly. What the hell is wrong with you?" Jessica's eyes darted to the phone, then back to me. Her usual quick-witted lies were gone. Instead, she went for the last card in her deck. Defiance. "Maybe if you'd paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have needed Mark." Her words hit like a slap, but I didn't flinch. I stepped closer, my voice cold. "Don't you dare try to blame this on me. You made this choice, Jessica. You destroyed this, not me." For a moment, the room was silent except for the sound of her shallow breathing. Then she grabbed the phone and stormed out of the kitchen, muttering something about needing space. I let her go. Let her think she still had some control. Because while she was hiding in the bedroom, texting Mark to cover her tracks, I was preparing for the next move. When Jessica stormed off to the bedroom, slamming the door like a petulant teenager, I stayed put. My fists were clenched so tightly my knuckles ached. But I couldn't stop now. She thought she could run away, regroup, and twist the narrative like she always did. Not this time. While the sound of muffled footsteps echoed upstairs, I stared at the second phone still in my hand. She'd thought she was clever snatching it back, but I'd managed to swipe it off the counter again when she wasn't looking. Her chat with Mark was my next target, but I didn't just want their text history. I wanted to find out exactly who this guy was. If he thought he could waltz into my life and take what I'd built, he had another thing coming. I opened the messages and scrolled up to the beginning of their thread. It started innocently enough, an exchange about a mutual project. Mark's full name was mentioned at the top of one of the emails Jessica had forwarded to her phone. That was all I needed. Grabbing my laptop, I typed his name into every platform I could think of. Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Bingo. Mark was a walking stereotype. His Instagram was a curated gallery of gym selfies, overpriced steak dinners, and deep quotes about hustling and living your best life. He even had a highlight reel called My People, where Jessica's face popped up in more than one clip. The videos made my blood boil. In one, she was laughing as Mark held the camera too close to her face. In another, she was sitting on his lap at a party, her head thrown back like she didn't have a care in the world. The captions? Things like, "This one's trouble, but I like a challenge," and "Some risks are worth taking." What struck me the most wasn't just the casual disrespect. It was how easy, how public they were. Mark wasn't afraid of being caught because Jessica clearly hadn't cared enough to set boundaries. She was flaunting it. I found more on LinkedIn, his job, his office location, even the gym he trained at. It was all there in his carefully polished professional profile. The arrogance was astounding. He probably thought he was untouchable. As I pieced together Mark's world, a plan began to form in my mind. Jessica had betrayed me, yes, but Mark had made himself part of this mess. That meant he was fair game. I wasn't going to confront him outright. That would give them both the satisfaction of playing victim. No, I wanted to dismantle their little fantasy world piece by piece. By the time Jessica came out of the bedroom, pretending to grab a glass of water, I was already sending the evidence to myself. Screenshots of their photos, his captions, and her messages. She glanced at me warily as I sat at the dining table, typing furiously. "Are you still sulking?" she asked, her voice dripping with condescension. I didn't even look up. "Oh, I'm just getting started." That shut her up. She hesitated for a second, then walked back to the bedroom. Good. Let her stew. By midnight, I had a dossier on Mark that would make a private investigator jealous. I knew where he worked, his hobbies, his routines, and I had all the ammunition I needed to make his life as uncomfortable as he had made mine. The first step was simple. Mark's workplace had an open email directory for clients and contacts. I drafted a carefully worded message to his boss, attaching screenshots of his Instagram posts and emails with Jessica. I made sure it was polite, professional, and dripping with plausible deniability. Subject: concern regarding employee conduct. Dear manager's name. I hope this email finds you well. I recently came across some posts on Instagram involving one of your employees. Mark, last name. That raised concerns about his professional conduct. I thought it best to bring this to your attention, as the content includes references to inappropriate workplace relationships. Please let me know if you require additional information. Best regards. A concerned party. I didn't sign my name. I didn't need to. By the time Mark saw the fallout, he'd know exactly where it had come from. As I hit send, a rush of satisfaction coursed through me. Jessica thought she could waltz around with Mark like I wouldn't notice. Mark thought he could step into my life without consequences. They were both wrong. The first domino had fallen, and I couldn't wait to watch the rest of their world collapse. The next morning, Jessica acted like nothing had happened. She waltzed into the kitchen with that same fake smile, wearing her favorite silk robe and humming as if she hadn't just been caught red-handed. "Do you want pancakes?" she asked, pulling out a mixing bowl like this was some kind of cozy Sunday morning. I stared at her, dumbfounded by her audacity. She was playing house, pretending the crack in our marriage wasn't now a full-blown canyon. I almost laughed. Almost. "No thanks," I said flatly, folding my arms. I lost my appetite. Around the time you decided to climb into Mark's lap, her hands froze mid-stir. The clink of the whisk against the bowl stopped abruptly, and she turned to face me, her expression tight. "Are we really doing this again?" she snapped. "You're reading into things that aren't there. I told you, he's just a friend." The nerve of her. "You mean the kind of friend who sends you texts about how you feel like fire in his arms? Or the kind who has you sitting on his lap while you wear a dress you bought for our anniversary dinner?" I let each word drip with venom. Jessica's face went pale, but then she recovered, her defenses shooting up like clockwork. "You've been snooping through my phone? My private conversations? That's a real violation of trust, you know?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was trying to spin herself as the victim. The sheer audacity almost made me laugh. "Violation of trust?" I repeated, standing up. "You're sleeping with another man, and I'm the one violating trust? Do you even hear yourself?" She rolled her eyes, a flicker of anger breaking through her calm facade. "I don't know what you think you've seen, but you're blowing everything out of proportion. Mark and I haven't even—" I cut her off with a sharp laugh. "Don't you dare finish that sentence. I've seen the texts, the photos. You can lie to yourself all you want, but don't insult me by lying to my face." For a moment she was speechless. Her mouth opened as if she wanted to protest, but nothing came out. Finally, she put the bowl down and crossed her arms. "Fine," she said coldly. "What do you want me to say? That I made a mistake? That I was lonely? You're not exactly a saint, you know. You're so busy with work, with your own life, you barely notice I exist anymore." There it was. The blame. The twisted logic. Somehow her betrayal was my fault. "Don't," I said, my voice low but firm. "Don't you dare try to make this about me. You had options, Jess. You could have talked to me. You could have ended this marriage if you were so unhappy. But instead you chose to lie, to sneak around, to humiliate me." Her jaw tightened, her defenses crumbling just slightly. "You don't understand," she said, her voice quieter now. "It's not. It wasn't supposed to happen like this." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, please, enlighten me. How was it supposed to happen? Were you hoping I'd just turn a blind eye while you played house with Mark? Or were you planning to dump me when it was convenient for you?" Her silence told me everything I needed to know. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed on the counter. We both glanced at it at the same time, and I didn't miss the way her face tensed when Mark's name popped up. "Go ahead," I said, gesturing to the phone. "Answer it. Or better yet, put it on speaker. Let's hear what your friend has to say." She hesitated, her hand hovering over the phone. Then she swiped to ignore the call, grabbing the phone and shoving it into her pocket. I laughed bitterly. "Yeah, that's what I thought." Jessica opened her mouth to argue, but before she could, I pulled out my trump card. "By the way," I said casually, grabbing my coffee mug and heading for the door, "you might want to warn your little boyfriend that his boss is going to have a very interesting morning." I sent a few things his way. Her eyes widened in panic. "What did you do?" I smiled coldly. "Just helping Mark get some accountability. You know, since he's such a professional." Her face was a mix of shock and fury, but I didn't stick around to see how she'd react. I walked out the door, leaving her standing there, clutching her phone like it was a lifeline. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. But the unraveling had begun, and I wasn't going to stop until I had burned their little fantasy world to the ground. The fallout started faster than I expected. By midday, Mark's Instagram went dark. His smug selfies, motivational captions, and highlight reels vanished, leaving only a blank profile. It was like watching a monument crumble in real time. Jessica spent most of the day in the bedroom, pacing back and forth, her phone glued to her ear. She thought closing the door would give her privacy, but our walls weren't that thick. I could hear the panic in her voice, the sharp whispers as she tried to salvage whatever she could. "What do you mean he knows? Who told him?" Pause. "I don't care if your boss is upset. Fix it. This wasn't supposed to get out." I smirked. Oh, how the mighty were falling. By evening, Jessica finally emerged. Her eyes narrowed, her shoulders tense. She was gearing up for a fight, but I had no intention of backing down. She stood in the living room, her phone clutched in her hand like a weapon. "What did you do?" she demanded, her voice cold and sharp. I looked up from the laptop where I was casually scrolling through emails. "What needed to be done?" I said, leaning back in my chair. "Mark wanted to play games. I just raised the stakes." Her jaw tightened, but there was a flicker of something else in her expression. Fear. "You had no right," she spat. "This was between us. You've dragged someone else into it." I stood, slowly, my hands resting on the edge of the table. "You dragged him into it the moment you decided to cheat, Jessica. Don't act like you're some innocent bystander. You made this mess. Now you get to deal with the fallout." She took a step closer, her voice dropping into a low hiss. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Mark could lose his job." I raised an eyebrow, letting her words hang in the air. "Good. Maybe he'll learn to keep his hands off another man's wife." The silence between us was electric. Jessica's face twisted, her emotions fighting for dominance. Anger, shame, desperation. Finally, she turned away, running a hand through her hair. "You're a vindictive bastard," she said quietly. I shrugged. "And you're a liar. Looks like we're both learning new things about each other." As the tension thickened, her phone buzzed again. She ignored it at first, but when it buzzed a second time, she couldn't resist. She glanced at the screen and froze. Her reaction was all the confirmation I needed. "Go ahead," I said, gesturing toward the phone. "Answer it. Or are you afraid of what he'll say?" She hesitated, but finally, she pressed the green button and brought the phone to her ear. "What?" she snapped, her voice low. I stayed rooted in place, watching her every move. "No, I don't know how he found out," she hissed into the phone, pacing back and forth. "I'm handling it. Just stop calling me for now." She hung up abruptly and turned to face me, her composure unraveling. "You think this is funny?" she shouted. "You think ruining someone's life makes you the bigger person?" I laughed bitterly. "You want to talk about ruining lives? You ruined ours the second you decided I wasn't good enough. Don't stand there and try to guilt me for cleaning up the mess you made." Jessica threw her hands in the air, exasperated. "What do you want from me, huh? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I got caught. I'm sorry you're too boring for me to stay faithful. Happy now." Her words hit me like a sledgehammer, but I didn't let it show. Instead, I smiled cold, detached. "Thank you," I said simply. She frowned. "For what?" "For confirming exactly who you are," I replied, walking past her. "Now I don't have to feel guilty for what happens next." Jessica called after me, but I didn't stop. My focus was shifting. This wasn't just about Jessica or Mark anymore. It was about making sure I came out of this chaos stronger, leaving them both to deal with the wreckage they'd created. And I was just getting started. Jessica was unraveling faster than I expected. Her calm facade was gone, replaced with frantic energy and constant whispers on her phone. Every time I entered the room, she'd stiffen, her voice dropping even lower, like she thought she could still keep her secrets. She didn't realize I was already 10 steps ahead. By midweek, the cracks in Mark's life were starting to show. A quick check of his LinkedIn confirmed he was on leave from work. A few casual inquiries through mutual acquaintances painted an even bleaker picture. Mark had been called into an HR meeting after someone forwarded incriminating personal conduct evidence to his boss. He'd left that meeting visibly shaken, and rumors about an inappropriate relationship with a married client, Jessica, were already spreading. Jessica didn't mention it, of course. She kept up her usual charade, as if pretending nothing was wrong could erase the chaos I'd set in motion. But I wanted more than rumors and awkward HR meetings. I wanted finality. That evening, while Jessica was taking a walk to clear her head, I dug deeper into her second phone. Buried in her messages with Mark was exactly what I was hoping for. A plan to meet. They'd arranged a final goodbye, though their messages made it clear they didn't believe it would actually be their last. The date, time, and location were all there. Friday night, 8 p.m., at a small cafe downtown. Perfect. I spent the next day preparing, making sure every piece of my plan was in place. When Friday arrived, Jessica seemed tense but determined. She avoided eye contact with me all afternoon, which only confirmed she was sticking to her plan. By 6:30, she announced she was heading out. "Work dinner," she said, slipping on a pair of heels and grabbing her bag. Her tone was overly casual, like she was trying too hard not to sound suspicious. I didn't respond, just nodded and watched as she walked out the door. The moment her car disappeared down the street, I grabbed my keys and followed. I didn't go directly to the cafe. Instead, I parked a block away and waited, watching as Jessica arrived and slipped inside. Mark was already there, sitting in the corner by the window, his body language radiating tension. Jessica joined him, her face lighting up in a way I hadn't seen in months. It stung. I won't lie. Seeing her like that, looking at him the way she used to look at me, made my stomach churn. But I forced the emotion down. This wasn't the time to lose focus. I stayed in my car, taking photos from a distance, documenting their cozy little reunion. They weren't exactly discreet. Jessica leaned in close, touching his arm, her body language open and inviting. Mark looked nervous, glancing around occasionally like he half expected someone to burst in. Someone like me. But I didn't confront them there. No, I wanted them to think they'd gotten away with it. I waited until Jessica left, watched her drive off, and then followed Mark to his next destination. Home. I parked a few houses down from his modest suburban rental, taking note of the lights turning on as he entered. Then I made my move. Mark answered the door looking pale and tired, but his expression shifted to sheer panic when he saw me standing there. "We need to talk," I said, stepping forward before he could slam the door in my face. He stammered, trying to compose himself. "Look, I don't know what you think." "Save it," I snapped. "I don't care about your excuses. This isn't a conversation. It's a warning." He blinked, confused and visibly shaken. "You've already lost your job?" I continued, my voice low and steady. "But if you think that's the end of this, you're dead wrong. Stay away from my wife. Do you hear me?" Mark raised his hands defensively. Look man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to." I said, "Do you hear me?" I repeated, my tone icy. He nodded quickly, his face pale. "Yes, I hear you." I stared him down for a moment longer, letting the weight of my words sink in. Then I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, a broken shell of the man who'd thought he could steal my life. When I got home, Jessica was already asleep, or pretending to be. Good. Let her lie in bed. thinking she'd pulled off another deception. Tomorrow, she'd wake up to the next phase of my plan, and she wouldn't see it coming. The morning after Jessica's little rendezvous, I woke up earlier than usual. The sun had barely risen, but my mind was already racing with what needed to happen next. This wasn't just about vengeance anymore. It was about closure, about dragging every lie Jessica had built into the harsh light of day. She was still asleep when I started phase 2. My first stop was the closet, where her designer handbags and carefully folded scarves were neatly arranged. Buried in one of her favorite totes was the receipt I'd planted from the night before, a printed copy of her cafe bill with Mark's name scrawled in the signature line. I left it on the kitchen counter, right where she'd see it when she came down for her morning coffee. The trap was set. Jessica finally emerged around 9:30, wearing an oversized sweater and her usual groggy expression. She barely glanced at me as she poured herself a cup of coffee, until her eyes landed on the receipt. She froze. "What's this?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral, though I could hear the tension beneath it. I shrugged, flipping through a newspaper like I didn't have a care in the world. "Looks like something you left in your bag." Her hand trembled slightly as she picked up the receipt, her eyes scanning the text. When she saw the name, her face turned ashen. "Why are you going through my things?" she demanded, her voice rising. "Oh, I was just looking for proof of the work dinner you mentioned last night," I said, my tone light. "Guess I found it." Jessica slammed the receipt down on the counter. "You're unbelievable. You're spying on me now? Snooping through my stuff like a jealous?" "Stop," I said sharply, cutting her off. "We're way past the point of you pretending this is my fault. You lied to me, Jess, again. And you weren't even smart enough to cover your tracks this time." Her jaw tightened, but she didn't deny it. For the first time, she looked genuinely cornered. "What do you want from me?" she snapped, her voice cracking slightly. "An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. Okay? I'm sorry I screwed up. I'm sorry I hurt you. But you've made your point. Can we move on now?" I laughed bitterly. "Move on? You think this is something we can just sweep under the rug? Do you even understand what you've done? Or are you so deep in your own delusion that you don't see the damage you've caused?" Her eyes darted around the room, searching for something. An excuse, an escape, anything. Finally, she sank into the chair across from me, her shoulders slumping. "I didn't mean for it to get this far," she said quietly. "But it did," I replied. "And now we're here. So, what are you going to do about it?" She looked up at me, her eyes glossy with tears. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of remorse. But then she spoke, and any hope I had of salvaging this crumbled. "I don't know," she admitted. "I don't know if I can fix this. I don't even know if I want to." Her words hung in the air, a dagger twisting in my chest. "You don't know if you want to?" I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. She shook her head, a single tear sliding down her cheek. "I didn't plan for any of this to happen, but I haven't been happy for a long time, and I don't think you have either." I stared at her, the weight of her confession sinking in. This wasn't just a betrayal, it was a rejection. Of me, of us, of everything we'd built together. Finally, I stood, my movements slow and deliberate. "Thanks for clearing that up," I said, my voice cold. "It makes what I'm about to do a hell of a lot easier." Jessica frowned, her confusion evident. "What are you talking about?" I didn't answer. Instead, I grabbed my jacket and walked out the door, leaving her sitting there, clutching the receipt like it was the last thread of a life she'd already torn apart. I wasn't sure where I was going, but I knew one thing. The mirror had shattered, and there was no putting it back together. The only thing left now was to pick up the sharpest pieces and cut the cord that still tied me to her. I drove aimlessly for a while, the sound of the engine and the hum of the tires on the road the only things grounding me. Jessica's words kept replaying in my head. "I don't think I want to fix this." It wasn't just the betrayal anymore. It was the finality of it. She had made her choice, and for the first time I realized I wasn't angry. I was free. By the time I pulled into a small park, the sun was high in the sky. I sat on a weathered bench, my phone in my hand, staring at the screen. The evidence I had collected was all there, neatly saved in a folder. Screenshots of texts, pictures of Jessica and Mark together, and, of course, the receipt from their little cafe date. I scrolled through it all one last time, a small part of me tempted to just delete everything and walk away. But then I thought of the lies, the disrespect, the audacity she'd shown time and time again. No, she didn't get to walk away clean. I opened the messaging app and composed a group text. To Jessica, Mark, Jessica's family, our closest friend subject, transparency. I think it's time everyone knows the truth. Jessica, this is for you, your messages with Mark, your meetups, your lies. You betrayed me and this marriage, and I deserve better than the web of deceit you've spun. Consider this my formal goodbye. I attached every piece of evidence, then hit send. The message showed delivered, and just like that, it was out of my hands. As I sat there, waiting for the fallout to begin, my phone buzzed almost immediately. First, it was Jessica. Jessica? Are you serious? What the hell is wrong with you? You're ruining my life. I didn't respond. Then her sister, Laura. Laura? Is this true? Oh my God. I can't believe this. Jess said she was happy. What happened? I didn't respond to her either. Let Jessica explain it. Finally, Mark. Mark. What's your problem, dude? Why are you dragging everyone into this? That one got a reply. Me. My problem? My problem is that you thought you could screw my wife and walk away without consequences. Welcome to the consequences, Mark. I blocked him after that. It didn't take long for the ripple effect to spread. By the time I got back to the house, Jessica was sitting on the couch, her face streaked with tears, her phone clutched in her hands. The look she gave me when I walked in was pure venom. You ruined everything, she spat, her voice hoarse. Do you even realize what you've done? I dropped my keys on the counter and turned to face her. Ruined everything? I repeated, my voice calm. No, Jessica. You ruined everything when you decided I wasn't enough for you. I just made sure everyone else saw the truth. She stood, her hands trembling, her breathing ragged. I hate you, she hissed, each word laced with venom. I chuckled bitterly. Good. Makes this easier. I walked past her and into the bedroom, where I grabbed the suitcase I'd packed earlier that morning. I didn't need much, just the essentials. Jessica didn't say a word as I walked back out, dragging the suitcase behind me. At the door, I paused, looking over my shoulder. You're right, Jessica, I said, my voice soft but firm. I wasn't happy either, but unlike you, I had the decency to stay loyal. Her face crumpled at that, but I didn't wait for a response. I stepped out, shutting the door behind me. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt lighter. The cord that had tied me to her, the lies, the betrayal, the resentment was finally severed. I didn't know what came next, but I knew one thing. It would be on my terms, and without her that I didn't go far at first. I checked into a cheap hotel on the outskirts of town. Just enough space to think without the shadow of Jessica looming over me. The first night I didn't sleep. My mind raced with what I'd done, with what was still to come. The next morning my phone was already buzzing. Jessica had texted me more times than I could count. Some messages were angry, full of venom and accusations. Jessica, you've ruined my reputation. Jessica, everyone's calling me a cheater because of you. You're pathetic. Others tried to manipulate me, pleading for me to take it all back. Jessica, you didn't have to do this. We could have fixed things. Jessica, please just talk to me. Let's figure this out. I ignored all of them. The real surprise came from the people around us. Friends, family, even casual acquaintances were reaching out, offering their takes, their opinions. Jessica's mother called first. Her voice trembled as she tried to make sense of it all. Is this true? She asked, as if hoping I'd say no. Every word, I replied simply. She sighed deeply. I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry, but she's still my daughter. I didn't blame her. Loyalty to family runs deep, even when the truth is ugly. Then came my best friend, Mike. His response was a mix of disbelief and rage. I never liked her, he said after hearing the whole story. I didn't want to say anything, but there was always something off about the way she acted. You deserved better, man. I wasn't sure if that made me feel better or worse. But the most unexpected message came from Laura, Jessica's sister. Laura, I'm sorry you're going through this. If it helps, Jess has been like this her whole life. Always thinking she could get away with anything. I'm glad someone finally called her out. I didn't reply to her, but it stuck with me. It made me realize this wasn't just about betrayal. It was about who Jessica really was. By the second day, Jessica had gone silent, but the damage was already spreading. Word had gotten back to Mark's workplace that his leave was indefinite. Friends who had once been Jessica's confidants were ghosting her, too embarrassed to be associated with her mess. And then came the final blow. I filed for divorce. It wasn't an easy decision, even after everything that had happened. 7 years of marriage wasn't something I could just erase. But every step Jessica had taken with Mark had led us here, and there was no turning back. I had the paperwork served to her that afternoon. She didn't call or text this time. Instead, a single email popped up in my inbox later that evening. I got the papers. I don't even know what to say anymore. I didn't mean for this to happen, but I know I can't fix it. I hope you can find someone who makes you happy someday. Jess, it was the first time she'd said anything close to accountability. But it didn't matter. I'd already made peace with what I had to do. As I sat in that small hotel room, staring at the email, I realized something. I didn't feel anger anymore. Not the fiery rage that had driven me to expose her lies, nor the hollow ache of betrayal. I felt free. Jessica's life was crumbling around her, and Mark had been dragged down with her. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't sinking with them. I had a clean slate ahead of me, one without lies, without doubt, without her. And I was ready to take it. The day after I served the divorce papers, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to the gym. Not the half-hearted visits Jessica used to nag me about, but a real, sweat-dripping, adrenaline-pumping workout. For the first time in what felt like forever, the weight on my shoulders wasn't just emotional. Each rep, each mile on the treadmill, felt like shedding layers of the past. Jessica and Mark, the lies, the humiliation. I left it all there, one drop of sweat at a time. Later that evening, I sat down in my hotel room with a notepad and pen. I've never been much of a writer, but I needed to sort my thoughts. What do I do now? Where do I go from here? The life I'd built for over a decade was gone, shattered by Jessica's choices. But that also meant I had a blank slate, a chance to build something new. The first item on my list was practical. Find a new place to live. The house Jessica and I had shared was too full of memories, too tainted by her betrayal. She could have it. I wanted no part of it anymore. The second item was personal. Reconnect with myself. Over the years, I'd poured so much of my energy into keeping our relationship afloat that I'd lost track of who I was. What did I love? What made me happy? These questions scared me as much as they excited me. The third was surprisingly simple. Surround myself with people who care. And that's exactly what I did. Over the next few weeks, I started reaching out to old friends. People I drifted away from because Jessica didn't like them, or because I'd been too busy trying to be the perfect husband. I grabbed beers with Mike, caught up with some college buddies, even reconnected with my younger sister, who had always seen through Jessica's act. "It's about time," she said when I told her everything. "You deserve better than her, and you always have." Hearing those words hit differently now. Before, I might have brushed them off, chalked them up to sibling loyalty. But now, I started to believe them. Meanwhile, Jessica was still trying to salvage her life. The divorce papers had sent a shockwave through her world. Friends stopped returning her calls. Her family was distancing themselves, and even Mark had gone radio silent. One night, she sent me a single text. "Jessica, I miss us." I stared at the message for a long time, the words feeling both familiar and hollow. This was the Jessica I'd fallen for, the one who knew how to say the right things, even when she didn't mean them. But I wasn't that person anymore. I didn't miss us because I wasn't sure we ever really existed. I didn't hear from her again after that. I focused on myself instead. I threw myself into my work, took up hobbies I'd always wanted to try. Boxing, cooking, even a little photography. Every step felt like reclaiming a part of myself that had been buried for too long. The biggest shift came when I finally found a new place to live. A small but cozy apartment on the other side of town. It wasn't much, but it was mine. No shared memories, no shadows of betrayal. Just me and a fresh start. I hung up the first photo I'd ever taken. A skyline at sunset, the colors vibrant and hopeful. It was a reminder that even after the darkest storms, there's still light waiting on the horizon. The life I'd known was gone. But for the first time in a long time, I was okay with that. I wasn't running anymore. I wasn't trapped in Jessica's lies or Mark's shadow. I was free, and I was finally ready to move forward. Months passed. At first, it felt strange, almost surreal to live in a world without Jessica. No arguments over dinner plans, no silent standoffs over her suspicious late nights, no waking up in the middle of the night to find her texting someone else. The quiet was unsettling at first, but eventually, it became comforting. The divorce was finalized quicker than I expected. Jessica didn't fight it. In fact, she barely showed up, both literally and figuratively. Her lawyer handled most of her responses, and by the end, the house, her ring, and the memories of our life together became hers to hold on to. I kept what mattered most. My dignity, my freedom, and the knowledge that I'd never again settle for someone who treated me like an afterthought. The final papers arrived in the mail on a rainy Thursday afternoon. I remember holding the envelope in my hands, staring at the bold words, "Final decree of divorce." It should have felt like an ending, but instead, it felt like a beginning. I threw the envelope onto the counter and grabbed my keys. That night, I drove to a nearby lake I used to visit as a teenager. The rain had stopped by the time I arrived, leaving the air crisp and clean. I sat on the hood of my car, looking out at the water, and for the first time in years, I let myself dream about the future. Not the future I'd imagined with Jessica, but something better, something real. Over time, the sting of betrayal dulled into a distant ache. I'd hear from mutual friends occasionally, whispers about how Jessica was struggling to pick up the pieces. Her reputation was in tatters. Her friends had distanced themselves, and her relationship with Mark had fizzled out almost immediately after the truth came out. Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction at her downfall, but all I felt was pity. Jessica had made her choices, and now she had to live with them. As for me, I was thriving. My job had taken off in ways I hadn't expected. With no emotional baggage weighing me down, I poured myself into my work, earning a promotion and enough savings to consider bigger goals. I started traveling, visiting places I'd always dreamed of but never prioritized. And somewhere along the way, I met someone. Her name was Claire. We met at a photography workshop of all places, both of us fumbling with our cameras during a sunset shoot. She laughed at my terrible jokes, and I found myself smiling more in that one afternoon than I had in the last 7 years. Claire was different. She didn't play games, didn't make excuses, and most importantly, she made me feel like I mattered. It was early, and we were taking things slow, but for the first time in a long time, I felt something I thought I'd lost forever: hope. Looking back, I don't regret anything. Not the marriage, not the heartbreak, not even the messy, public unraveling of it all. It taught me lessons I could never have learned otherwise. I learned to trust my instincts, to stand up for myself, and to never settle for less than I deserved. To anyone reading this who's going through something similar, here's my advice. Don't let someone else's betrayal define you. Don't stay in a situation where you're undervalued, disrespected, or ignored. You're worth more than that, even if it takes time to believe it. Because no matter how dark things feel right now, there's always a way out. And sometimes, that way out is the beginning of something better than you ever imagined. For me, that's what this journey became. A painful, messy, but ultimately freeing path to a new life. And I'm never looking back.